All right, so over here at TSP, man, we've made it a point to acknowledge that we're not here for the echo chamber. There's a lot of stuff that we disagree on. You and I have had it duked it out on the phone, on the podcast. We pride ourselves on being able to have the conversation with somebody that doesn't necessarily align with the things that we already think and feel. There are people that do say things that we generally agree with, or people that we generally like out there in YouTube land, out in content creator world. And they kind of rub us the wrong way with some of the things that they say, even though, technically speaking, they are aligned with some of the ideologies that we subscribe to the point where it kind of seems a lot like pandering, does it not?
It absolutely does. It's one of the problems. It's funny because like we always say it's an inside joke between me and Evil. Like, we always have our show when we're not doing our show, so we were actually having this conversation, wanted to kind of, get this recording, but like...
Oh, yeah, I told him to shut the fuck up and let's get in here and record. Like, stop having the show on the phone or in the backstage.
I am definitely lean conservative, and you lean liberal. Inherently, there's some content creators that are very conservative, and there's content creators very liberal. But we both have a disdain for someone that is just pandering to the other side and isn't willing to have nuance. A few guys that I kind of brought up, and I'll just say it how it is, like a guy, for example, and I think some of the content he makes is okay, but a guy like Steven Crowder, right? Like, first off, you can't be a comedian if you're not funny. I don't like when it's just blatantly obvious you're just pandering to your side. Like,
Can you give an example? Because I'm not so familiar with him.
I mean, so like there's some... And this has been a while, but there's been some FBI statistics he'll bring up, whether it be about like black on black crime. Right?
Chicago.
So like, there'll be some FBI statistics, and he'll say like black people commit more crime than white people, essentially. And
yeah, but then the other statistics show that people across the board commit similar amounts of crime.
Similar crimes. And we've actually gone down that where the actual percentages base is like on percentage base, it's pretty even.
Very even. Like white on white crime is above 90%. Black on black crime is above 90%. Asian on Asian crime is above 90%. Hispanic on Hispanic crime is above 90%. Why? Because people tend to harm the people they live around. And we're pretty much racially segregated for the most part, even in large cities.
And I just think like with some of his content, just overall, even like with some of the even some of the LGBT commentary he's had, it's one of those things that just it kind of makes you cringe. Like I know you're pandering to this super conservative, right? That may look negatively on these groups of people.
But what is he adding to the conversation?
Nothing of value.
Exactly.
And
I think that's really where the panderer fucks up, right?
Yeah.
It's not that you have opinions. It's that your positions have... It's just the bones, right? There's no meat on the bones.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, and just going along that thought, Steven Crowder has a famous segment called "Change My Mind." You probably seen the
we sit there at the table and all of that big meme. Yeah.
But I feel like he goes into those conversations just ingenuous, right? Like he's not truly trying to get his mind changed or willing. Like he brings up statistics.
But that's not the purpose of conversation, right? The purpose of conversation is not to change people's minds. So I never thought about this before, but you're absolutely right. Like the premise of the segment falls short.
It's disingenuous. And I think like some of the things he say is completely correct. Right. But other things, it's like he's just taking it. So it's like you're competing against the layman. And this is one of the problems I've had with a guy like Crowder. He never takes on an intellectual that can kind of go bar for him, essentially, and kind of go back and forth with him at an intellect level where they know what they're talking about. Like if I go down the street, right, and I talk to, just for my own history, I talk about like, so do you know about like the what the rate is, what like how many gallons is in a barrel of oil, or like how much fuel is distributed down the East Coast, and where like how you can't go from port to port if you're a foreign ship. Like I could go into like segues, and I can make them look stupid because they don't know. It's the layman. And that's where I kind of feel like I have a problem with Crowder. And like there's other content creators. It's not even just like having.
Before you move to the other ones, let me ask you this question: Do you think that his disingenuous approach to these conversations actually does water down the things of value that he may have said? Because I'm pretty sure he said something that's made sense, right? Do you think that
Absolutely.
it kind of takes away from his credibility as a content creator or somebody who's supposed to be driving conversation?
100%. I think it's because he's made some really valid and good points over the years about sometimes about drug use doesn't really give a shit, or just various different topics. Some are slipping my mind that I feel like misses, like it gets missed the mark because he panders so hard, right? Like there's cases where he's right, but like he panders so hard in those cases that it's just unlikable, and he's just making it he's making himself, not to pun, kind of not intended, he's making himself far too right than he actually is, right? Like he might be correct on an issue, and then he'll take like a sliver of one correct fact and try to like have this narrative of like how that's everything. I know that's
overuse of hyperbole and
yep.
Right, I get it.
And I just think it's one of those problems I have with guys like him, because I think there's some really good points he makes, but he misses the mark. Let's just say it on this, because I'll flip to the other side because I've seen some of him and I want your opinion. I know you don't like this person, but Hassan Piker, or Hassan Abi, the YouTube guy, like he's a lefty, right? And he's far left liberal, and I will concede there's sometimes he comes up with okay points, but like he gets so caught up in this pandering woke bullshit that it just,
oh my god, he's a caricature of himself.
Absolutely.
Like when you know, the thing is, you and I, we try to avoid the trans issue because quite frankly, if somebody wants to identify as what they want to identify as long as we're not interacting with their thing directly, it's really none of our business, right?
Yeah, we don't give a shit.
Right. Yeah. Do what the fuck you want to do, right? When it comes to sports, we've got an issue. When it comes to making sure that you disclose your status as a trans person when you go into the dating market, as long as you stay out of women's sports and you disclose your status, I don't have no fucking problems with you. Go do whatever the fuck you want to do. A lot of people aren't with that, but then there are some people that are like, oh my God, like I'm so super, trans ally. This guy, Pike or whatever the fuck his name is, this guy has gone so far beyond the pale that to prove that he is an ally to trans people, he shits on trans people for their opinions. What the fuck is that? Yo, I am so pro-trans. I'm more pro-trans than you. Sure. You cut your dick off. Sure, you've been, gobbling hormones like M&Ms. You've been living this life. You've gone through the struggles and the dysmorphia and all of that stuff and the depression. You're just a trans person. You don't know what you're talking. Nigga, if you don't shut the fuck up.
Well, and that's the problem I have with that guy.
He wants to talk about white people and how white people are evil. Where did that motherfucker move to? Beverly fucking Hills?
I mean, listen, like, I think for me, like, when he had some issues, like, regarding talking, like, about that transition, I saw that clip. And I'm like, bro, you can't tell a person of that community how to think. Because it's like, it's I hate to say it, it's the bad stereotype of liberals. That's exactly what he is. He's that big fringe liberal that everyone mocks, like, minorities, you don't know what's right for you, only I know what's right for you. Like,
yeah, I saw that shit too. He's telling the black guy,
I know
to be black.
Like,
the black guy went to the so-called racist town. You saw that.
It was a video I watched before he made the reaction to, because Gideon, that was a great video. It kind of broke down how, like, how terrible, how stupid that person comes off. I think I called you regarding that. And it's just like, for me, I'm like, bro, you can't tell a black man how to feel as a black. Like, listen. My whitish looking ass is gonna tell Dr. Evil, like, yeah, you don't know the black experience, Evil, right? You don't know.
Not quite like this fucking ginger without a soul, okay? You know the black experience better with the red beard, right?
Exactly, bro. Like, you haven't dealt with this, bro. In my mind, I know more than you, and that, like, it's the problem with him. And then he says, like, I feel like these pandering people on both sides are such hypocrites, right? Because, like, Piker, he was completely fine about Ethan, like, bombing the NRA. And the NRA is a whole different conversation because I think there's some troubling parts of the NRA that should.
But listen to
like,
that.
But like
bombing the NRA. Yeah, that sounds very pacifist.
Exactly, and it's like you can't be a hypocrite. Like if you want like to do things democratically or in good faith, you need to make sure you have that same energy. And that's the problem I have with these pandering people, because they want things a certain way for their side, but the other, it's like it's all whole bar, don't give a shit. And like another one, like another pandering content creator I don't like is Officer Tatum, right? I feel like it makes me uncomfortable watching it as a white man. It just does, because it's just like, listen.
But you're not just any white man. You're a conservative white man.
Yeah, and it makes me uncomfortable and start I mean, I don't like tiki torches. Like it's just some interesting things like that I can't get over with Officer Tatum. Like I think there's some points he brings up of some validity, but I also think like it's superly pandered, where like he is always making excuses for cops in even terrible situations.
Doesn't it feel like it's an insult to your intelligence though?
It does, because it's like, it's like, when you watch Disney or like Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon or whatever, just super right. Like, oh my God, are you ready today, kids? Like, are you ready to talk about racism and black brutality? Like, like that's what it feels like when I'm watching Officer Tatum. I just feel so uncomfortable because I'm like, like this just makes me feel weird, and I can't respect content creators that aren't willing to have a diverse conversation. And there's one more thing I'll say about Tatum, and this is more due to personal beliefs, right? Like, I was raised Christian. I was raised in a Catholic house. Tatum's very big Christian. There was a video that he had about, like, the Army, LGBT Army ad, which I've mocked in the past not because of the gay elements, but just because it was such a bad video. It was so badly constructed. But I think like he had an interesting take in there, saying like, there's no such thing as you're straight or you choose not to be straight, and it's like one of those things. I'm like, I get that's what your side wants to hear, but it's just kind of, I don't know. To me, it's cringe. It's very cringe. It's like, dude, like I just feel like a person like Officer Tatum heavily panders to the conservative voice, and I think due to that, doesn't allow himself to like sit back, reflect, and maybe be like, hey, like that was a good point. You know what I mean? Or, let people live their lives how they is. I get people are Christian and they have their faith, but like one of the things I learned as Christians, I hate when people use faith as an excuse to like, openly mock people. So I'm like, like Jesus said, but
faith is about not mocking people.
Exactly. Jesus said those without sin shall cast the first stone.
Right.
That's an important parable, like important teaching that we have learned, and getting back into it, I think me and you don't like this pandering content because it feels like I said, I'm just watching a children's show and I'm just getting force-fed like happy-go-lucky information that I know is not going to challenge my worldview.
Right. Right. I'll give you a couple examples of some of the pandering that I dislike. And some of them will be even from people that either I liked in the past or I even still like them today. Coach Greg Adams is a guy I like. I like him. Way too much pandering, especially when it comes to some of the more conservative viewpoints. Some of the conservative viewpoints I do agree with. Some of them, when he starts to make excuses for officers who have unnecessarily killed people of color in the line of duty, and he's standing up there like supporting that kind of stuff, I can't do it. The Charles Barkleys and the Shaquille O'Neals. I used to watch Inside the NBA religiously. As soon as the game ends on TNT, I turn the channel, even if I go to turn off the TV. Because I can't stand that kind of I just can't do it. But I think one of the more egregious, I can't really think of a liberal that doesn't keep that same energy. I guess a lot of liberals do a lot of pandering to the point where I just dismiss them. I just dismiss them offhand. Like I don't want to hear anything you have to say. Is it unfair that I might be holding conservatives to a higher standard? It might be. But the Hodge twins, okay? That was a real source of disappointment for me, okay? There's only been one rock concert that wasn't Coheed and Cambria that I ever bought tickets to and attended. And the one person that I went to see the performance for quit the band the morning of the day they were supposed to perform at the venue I bought the tickets for, right? So that was disappointing. Well, you know what was worse? I've only been to one comedy show in my life. It was the fucking Hodge twins. I spent money to go see them at Caroline's on Broadway. We're talking New York fucking City, Times Square. That shit's expensive. I'm buying merch. I bought a t-shirt. You know, I'm sitting there, you know, they're telling stories about, you know, their childhood and all that. All right, cool, right? They were always irreverent, always saying, you know, off the cuff stuff. That's fine, right? They want to laugh at stuff that some people think you shouldn't be laughing at. I'm right here with it. I'm constantly laughing at shit I'm not supposed to be laughing at, okay? When they went and did the crossover thing, you know, a few weeks before they officially started calling themselves the Conservative Twins. The level of pandering, the pandering, sometimes it just goes from, I just lose respect for you to, wow, that's kind of dangerous, the shit you're putting out there. Before you guys were like happy-go-lucky, saying a bunch of fucked up shit. All right, cool. Do you see what these clowns look like today? With the 1776 and you know all of this, practically wishing that the Confederates won the Civil War. Like, what? And I can't tell if he's pandering to make. I can't tell if they're pandering to make fun of conservatives, which I think is just as bad, right?
Yeah.
And it's disappointing.
I think with the Hodge twins, right? I was never the biggest fan. I have seen their content, but so I kind of speak from a different perspective. But if I do remember correctly, the Hodge twins for a while, they were around for the platform for a few years, or several years at that point, right? And I think they weren't seeing the same level of success, right? Like they weren't seeing the same level of view count. So you know what happens? They need to find a different avenue to get into, and I think that's kind of what happened. They want to find a different lane.
They were eating garbage in their car. They made a channel out of that.
Yeah, like I've never seen any. I don't think anything inherently wrong. Like if you want to be a patriot and you want to support 1776, that's great. But like when it gets to a level of like the Confederacy stuff and like that, like a little kind of weird. They're very weird. Like I was never, like I said, I've never been a big fan of the Hodge twins just because I thought their comedy, it wasn't for me. I just thought it was very basic. Like, yeah, like just gonna bust inside them guts. Like that was their thing.
Yo, their catchphrases were funny as fuck, man.
Like they were. Like, I'll give them that. I'll give them their flowers with that. But I think, like for me, the
title of his email. That's why it's so disappointing for me. I like those motherfuckers.
But I think when
this is not just about shitting on other content creators who are admittedly more successful than we are. This is about when pandering goes wrong to the point where, and the thing is, I gotta ask you this. Do you know any white people that truly respect black people that shit on black people?
I mean, the racist ones, but that's about it. Like, I mean that honestly. Like, the only people that are down with that type of content, like the people within my circle, no. But the only people I even know of that would be down with that type of content generally do not like black people.
Well, let me ask you this question. How many KKK rallies do you think Candace Owens is going to get invited to speak as a guest of honor?
0.
Of just letting that be. We want to hear from the commenters, do we not?
Yeah, we do. Oh my god.
In the comments section below, we'd like to know.
Such an asshole.
Can you give us some examples of? It could be mainstream media. It can be independent content creators. It can be anybody. Can you give us some examples of pandering, particularly from people that normally would say things you would agree with that just don't sit right with you? Leave that down there in the comment section below. And again, All that analytic shit, please like, favorite, subscribe, all that bullshit. See you on the next one.